Should I start sharing the screen?
No, sir.
No.
Let me give the welcome address, please.
Oh, okay. Okay. Fine.
The formal one. Avinash, shall we start, Avinash?
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah, we can
Yes,
start.
please connect.
So, shall I start, ma'am?
Yes, please connect.
Yeah, okay, ma'am. So, good evening to one and all present here. I am Avinash, the president of Computer Science Department, Transcode Forum. So, I'm very glad to invite you all to this webinar. So, once again, we are back with the webinar. So, last week we went with the webinar, and again today, Saturday, we are going with another webinar, which is about information security and digital technology, which is going to be taken by our resource person, Mr. A. Venkatachalam Subramaniam, sir. So, and once again, I'm very glad to invite all the students, staff members, faculty members, our HOD ma'am, and our beloved principal, Dr. S. Santosh Babu, sir. So, I'm welcoming you, sir. Once again, I'm welcoming you to this webinar and taking our request and accepting to attend this webinar. And so, I'm going to say about our Mr. Resource person, Mr. Venkatachalam Subramaniam, sir. So, BSc, MFM, FI, he is currently pursuing PhD. He's also an independent consultant. He has worked as a global service delivery head in Cape Gemini, which is in Bangalore, and he is also a senior business executive with 31 years of in-depth banking technology and operations experience across diverse cultural environments. He has established integrated technology and operations management service in securities data domain for TIA, one bank to deliver business agenda, recipient of the CEO award for this program. He is a proven expertise of local and global banking and capital market. He is a strong blend of knowledge and experience in banking and service provider environments. So he is a recognized champion for diversity and inclusion. His strong prominent of learning and development has a means to deliver service excellence, sponsored or lead multiple programs focused on human capital development. So we are very happy that you are here to take us a good explanation about information security and digital technology. I think students will really enjoy it and they'll be really benefited out of it. So thank you once again for accepting our request and taking this webinar, sir. I welcome you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Good evening, one and all. On this fine evening, I feel pleasure in welcoming our principal who has come over here for this event amidst of his busy schedule. Thank you, sir. And on this fine occasion, I would like to share you something that this event is being conducted by the Students Forum named as Transcode, which has been created by our principal who is a former HOD of our department. Thanks a lot, sir. And on behalf of our Transcode Forum and my dear staff members, I would like to extend my gratitude to Mr. Venkatachalam Subramaniam as a resource person for this event. Thank you and welcome you all once again. Principal, sir.
Yes. Good evening. Is audible?
Yes,
Good
sir.
evening,
Yes.
one and all. The expert, Mr. A. Venkatachalam Subramaniam, who is with us to deliver a lecture on information security and digital technology, and my dear faculty members of Computer Science Department and the students of Transcode. This forum is started in order to give a knowledge beyond the class hours. That is the purpose of our forum. And also knowledge is power. So if we want to have a knowledge, we have to discuss with many people. We have to listen the lectures of various people. Then only our knowledge will come up. So previously we had a IoT lecture. Today we are having information security and digital technology. But both information security and digital technology are not separable. Both are combined together. Whereas in the digital technology, where we have a term in terms of cyber security. When the technology grows, simultaneously the people who are doing unwanted things like hackers are also simultaneously coming up. And they used to have hacking the websites, they used to hack the databases, they used to hack the personal informations which is available in the cloud. So the cyber security is a very important one, where the sophistication and knowledgeable person working on information security have various parameters to intrude in the others' data that is happening. So first we have to divide what is the digital era. The digital era is more or less, it is like paperless work for any application. Simply we can say that digital era is nothing but paperless work for any domain, whether it is banking domain, whether it is education domain, or whether it is hospital domain, whatever may be domain. Then if there is no paper, whatever the things we used to store, write it in a paper, and we will be putting in safe custody, safest document. If the document is to be published, it will be given as a notice. So the document divides into various types. Like that, when you go for a digital era, instead of paper, pen and paper, we will be in the process of read-writable form. So what are the data can be, which are one are read-writable form, which can be seen by which person. So there is a parameters, attributes for any file. The file will have an attribute of read only, write only, readable and writable, readable by a particular people, writable by particular people. Like that, we have a lot of attributes to be added with all the digital files. So when the digital technology grows, and we have to think about the technology of information security. Information security is nothing but where your data is manipulated as an information. If you are able to get the data in various places and that can be combined together and it can be get information, but the information should be known to everybody. It should be known to only to a particular person. So keeping in this mind, we have a lot of digital content to be safeguarded using using watermarking technique, using digital signature embedded technique, using barcode technique, QR code technique. A lot of techniques we are using. But anyhow, once again, I like to emphasize one thing is due to cloud computing, we are providing lot of services to the public through cloud. So for that we need a secure cloud. So in that also a lot of people are working with this. So with these few words, and also the need of the security design is an increasing number of internet facing application, and our increasing use of cloud services, active development of global operations, and fostering of external collaboration. We are not. Previously we become confined with a smaller area. Now when we go for globally, automatically we had a problem of accessing data through remote. Empowering user to be more mobile. That is also there. If there is more mobility of data, the more information security has to be emphasized. So all these things are we have to keep in mind. So we have an expert who is going to talk about the information security and data digital era. So I like to congratulate the computer science department for organizing this webinar. So really this webinar will be useful for the students and also the participants who are going to hear the lecture on. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the
Thank you.
information and elaborative introduction, sir. Thanks a lot, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Venkatachalam, sir.
Okay, we're good to go.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So you can share your screen, sir.
Good evening. Are you able to see my screen? Because
Yes, sir. It's
Yes, sir.
okay, brilliant. Okay. So thank you very much, Principal Sir, Dr. Babu, then HOD, ma'am, and others. for this wonderful interactive session that we're going to have in the next 1 hour. I completely agree with the principal, sir, and I think he said it in very few words, but very powerful statement. I think the more and more digitization that is happening in the world across the industries, the risk keeps increasing. I think that is the very simple, positively correlated phenomenon that we are seeing across. We'll see as we grow. As the industry grows, any industry for that matter, whether it's banking, telecommunication, tourism, hospitality, doesn't matter what it is. So wherever the digitization happens, that means we are exposing the information to the larger group of people. Some may have some malafide intentions. I think he made an excellent statement saying that that's extremely important to focus on this. What we are going to do in the next probably about 40 minutes and then see if we can take some questions towards the end is that I thought it'd be good to see some of the basics of information security and then see what are the various kind of risks that we are exposed to. And then for some people who are going to get into a career, in the next 6 months, 1 year, or 1.5, 2 years, I think what is it waiting for them in the corporate world? And they go in as an employee or as a role, what is that they are going to deal with in this information security area? And then we'll also try to cover, whatever on the digital transformation domain. So with that context setting, I would like to start straight away. It's a very, information security is can be understood in a very simple way. I don't think there is anybody in this audience who does not use a mobile device. And every single person here locks the mobile phone with a password. I think we'll have to scale it up to the larger applications and the larger databases across the world. So there's something that is yours. So you want to keep it secure. You want to keep it safe. So obviously you want to lock it and keep, and access is restricted only for yourself. That's a very fundamental principle of information security. So what we plan to do today is that we'll see what are the various types of information, typically in an industry, in the corporate world. How does this information get managed and the information security is being put in place or framework is put in place? Then what are the various types of security? Then we all have heard of social engineering, passwords, email, cloud storage, malware. We'll see what is all this, but most of these sound very familiar. The question what we need to ask ourselves is that are we strictly complying with these kind of requirements? I think that is a key point that we need to answer. Then I would also like to share some of my own experiences in the information security area in my previous roles that I played. And then as an IT professional, I think all of you are going to have a fantastic, bright career in your own chosen domain and in your own area in the future. You're all bright sparks, right, waiting to glow. So there are certain things that you need to keep in mind. And then we'll also talk about some digital technology and transformation. Finally, this is purely my own career tips. If you want to make a career in information security or in digital, mainly on the information security side, what is that you need to focus on? I mean, it's a very interesting area. So what is that you need to focus on? Okay. So the first thing is, why are we here? We are here because we keep seeing all these names, very regularly in the press, in the social media. And we have heard of what happened with Yahoo, what happened with Facebook. I'm sure you all know now while we speak, there is a parliamentary committee that is quizzing Facebook, and then they're going to quiz Amazon next week. So why is all this happening? And our own, Cosmos Bank, cooperative bank in Pune, right? They're all underlying message across all these big names is there have been data breaches, there have been some data leakages, which could have or which had great impact. Just to give you a simple example, Cosmos Cooperative Bank Limited, one of the cooperative banks in India, Maharashtra-based, Pune-based, and over 2 to 3 years, the customers' debit cards are being, information has been hacked, and they were being, misused. And over about 95 or 100 crores of rupees have been stolen from various cards. Mind you, this is only a cooperative bank. I mean, in the sense that customer base is very small. So when the bank size increases and the number of customers go up and the number of the size of funds goes up, the risk is much, much higher. And it was you may want to do in one of the economic magazines, you will see that there was a UN report that was published on this Cosmos Cooperative Bank, right? And they went into the depth of what is the fraud all about, right? So with all this, that is the reason why we want to focus more on the information security. It could be any information. Now, what is this information? I mean, when we say information, anything and everything is an information. Just to give you a few examples. Now, to start, if you're working for a corporate, right, you start with there'll be a business strategy of the company. How do we grow? What are the mergers and acquisitions that we want to get into? What are our financials? Right? It is still not made public. Right? Then on the other side, you have employee names, employee phone numbers, employee contact details. Right? And then there could be business plans. Right? What the company wants to do in the future, the next 6 months, 1 year. And then the individual information like, the name of the person, date of birth, PAN card, Aadhaar, mobile number, email ID. And then more importantly is that depending upon the organization that you work for, there are patents, copyrights, client information, because the company would have, after a lot of R&D would have created, invented, discovered a lot of, new things. And all this is very precious information for the company or for that organization. Right? And also there are a lot of regulatory requirements. Like, for example, if it's an unpublished financials of a company, gets leaked out or audit reports get leaked out without being approved by the board, then it could cause severe damage to the organization. And also it could be more damaging from the regulatory standpoint. They could be barred, they could be penalized. And there are cases where, I'm coming from a banking and financial services domain and capital markets. I can say there are a number of examples where people have even been present. Okay, there have been unfair trade practices that have been executed based on such leakage of information. So the information is huge, humongous. We don't even know what is the scale or size that we are talking about. These are only, a very, very small example of what we on a day-to-day deal with. Okay, on a personal note, our own identification, our own, details of phone number and email ID and our own family members' details, we don't want everybody else to know. But at the same time, people also need to be careful that while we want to be very protective of our own information, how much of that are we freely, publishing on our own in various social media? Anyway, that's a different point altogether. But for this particular session, we focus on this corporate-related, industry-related information. Now, what is this information security all about? Essentially, there are various definitions you'll see. It is basically, how do I protect the information and the systems relating to this information from anybody who is not authorized to access, or they cannot use it, they cannot take it and disclose to somebody, or they can't disrupt that information or go and make changes to that information or destroy it, right? So that is essentially the information security is all about. It should be available only to those people. If I'm working in a company, only I am authorized to see the business plan. That's it. Only my team is authorized to see the business plan. That's it. Nobody else is expected to view that information. And this is to ensure there is confidentiality of the data, integrity, the data is not touched. At the same time, one cannot have such very, very tight systems that even people who are required to know the information are not able to view it. So that means we need to ensure availability as well. So confidentiality, integrity, and availability are the key objectives of any information security program. And out of that, cyber security is basically the ability to protect or safeguard our information from any external data risk. So if I'm working for a bank, I'm working for a hotel, or I'm working for a service provider, any kind of service provider, how do we ensure that our data is being protected from the external risk? It's anything outside our organization network, which is exposed to the WAN or the entire World Wide Web. The moment it goes to the cyberspace, there are a lot of people, hundreds of people who are waiting there to make use or misuse the information that we have. Right, so that is cybersecurity. So information security is a much comprehensive framework, and within that is the cybersecurity which protects the information from the cyber attacks. And cybersecurity is a part of information security. It's a very interesting statistics I saw. I thought, you may know it, but still share. You see, in 2015, it's an information table in the Lok Sabha, so it's very authentic from the government of India, right? So we started with about 49,000 breaches. These are all cybersecurity breaches incidents. And last year it was about 400,000, 394. And this year till August, we've already reached 700,000. So, now we can imagine what kind of risk that we are getting exposed to every day and day in and day out. And more so because now the whole world is remotely operating right now, right? So which means there is much more risk that we are going to face. Now, it's just to give you a perspective. Information security is, what is it we need to know? When we talk about information security, okay, what comes to our mind first? The first is people, right? The significant stakeholder in the whole information security protocol or framework is the people. So people hold the information. They have access to the information. They have got the intention to use, misuse, abuse, modify, destroy. Everything is people. Then the process. How does the business process or operational process in any company, right from, say, for example, if it's a tour booking company or if it's a bank, how are these processes structured? How are the checks being processed? How are the transactions of buy and sell, foreign exchange being processed in the bank? And the technology, internal application systems, the tools, including your CCTV cameras to your, cyber security measures that you have. So these are the broad three pillars of the stakeholders of the information security. Then comes, I think principals have said, we move towards the digital world, right? Any information starts with a physical form, which means it is available in a paper form or in a book, or, that's the basic format. Then it becomes electronic or digital. And it doesn't stop there. It becomes an audio. Now, with all this, the new pandemic, post-pandemic world, the way the world is operating, there's a lot more on audio and video. The information is available in plenty, right? It could be available to anyone, right? So these are the places where the information is stored. And these are all the tangible places where one can store the information. But there is one which we cannot see is the human brain, right? Like being an employee of an organization, I may not have a physical copy, I may not have a digital copy, I may not have an audio file, I may not have a video file, but I have the information in my brain. So the information is stored across, right? So which means this is the kind of information that we need to safeguard against any risk. Classification. Typically, in any organization, the classification of information is of 4 types. Public, which includes the company name, company address, company phone number. Internal, which is purely for our internal purposes, employee phone number, employee address, and department contacts names, and which is only for the internal employees. Restricted, if only I am supposed to or my team is supposed to use it. For example, I work in a marketing team. So what is going to be our marketing pamphlet or the advertising campaign that we are going to do in the next quarter? So that is restricted only for this particular team. And then absolutely confidential. So nobody is supposed to have access to this, which will have price sensitive information, or it could have a reputation sensitive. For example, if a company is going through laws, there are some financial information which is yet to be audited, or there are some growth related strategies, or there could be some R&D outputs which could have a significant impact on the growth. These are all absolutely confidential. So these are broadly the 4 types. And then threats are typically external or internal. Internal is, we all know, internal is within the organization. We are in a bubble, and inside the bubble, the organization bubble, whatever happens is internal threat. Outside it is external. And physical security is one thing which, unfortunately, what happens is when more and more people are focusing on the cyber security and on the broader digitization world, the physical security is a very, very important and significant security aspect. Right from who's got access to the premises and to my work desk. Are the visitors authorized? Is a person carrying a right ID card? Is he being authorized? Has he been, if a person is becoming an employee of an organization, has completed his background verification, right? Even in the meeting rooms, having worked in a bank, I can tell you, it's very important. You will see in the meeting room, there will be a board kept there. After completing your meeting, please wipe. Don't leave any paper in the room. Do not leave your laptop or mobile, and do not leave anything, any notings on the whiteboard. Because for all you know, we may be discussing some strategy, and you leave everything there and it becomes a public information. And then finally is the remote working. Now, I think earlier it used to be only for a very select few, but now right from students to people who are working in IT services companies to banks to even hospitals, right? People are working remotely. Work from home as his own, having, I just want to take a pause here. Having worked for IT services company, supporting one of the top 5 banks in the world, right? The work from home is a major paradigm shift for this financial services industry. Because extremely secure industry, and nobody is authorized to get into the desk, or the operational desk, or does not have access to the application system. But the pandemic has forced these banks to work from home because there was no other way. So, which means everything is being questioned, everything is being, all the rules are being rewritten. And you have public places. I don't know how many people have seen. There are people who work in, remotely, who travel from place to place. They go sit in a, cafe coffee day or some other place. And now it must be less, but I'm saying you will have people working from there, logging into the public network, without any security. So that is again, that's one area where we need to look at from the information security standpoint. And then some of the devices, we use our laptops, smartphones, tabs, USBs, and whatnot, and information is available anywhere and everywhere. So under this context, if you get into, okay, if that is the case, what are the various types of information security that we need to look at? We know what are the information, if for an organization, and what are the various aspects of information security. Now, what are the specific types of information security? We start with this very basic thing is, since this group is more focused on the computer science and the technology part, first and very basic thing is the application security. The whole vulnerabilities that software applications and tools and mobile applications are facing, right? Now, this, like for example, the application that we are using, is it being authorized to be downloaded, or are we using an unauthorized one? Whether the persons who are working in this particular development tool or development work on that particular tool, are they authorized to use it? And then, when multiple people need to work together, does each person, based on the role, for example, a person who's developing the coding obviously should not have access to the testing database, and the person who's doing the test database, who's doing the testing work, should not have access to the development work. And similarly, a person who's going to, host the code after it is developed, it is going to be implemented. For example, there's going to be a transaction monitoring system, that needs to be changed, or some, let's say, high-value transactions in a bank. The person who's going to actually implement the code in the live system, right, cannot have access to any of the development or testing, and vice versa. So these kind of application vulnerabilities can create a lot of breaches. A person who's having access to these multiple applications and multiple tools, that itself is one. So application security itself is one important area. Other one is cloud security. I think the principals are covered it. I think this is something which is extremely important in coming days. So now more and more companies are getting into the cloud platforms, because that's become much cheaper, much faster, much more convenient. You can access from anywhere. But the moment it is outside in a cloud, so which means that application is running in a shared environment where many people can access. There could be hundreds of clients or thousands of clients accessing the same cloud, but these particular client data, the client related information, is it being segregated? Is it being restricted from access from others? It's a big question, and we find very often there are always issues and breaches that we see. Other one is the cryptography, which is more technical, which is what we see is the encryption of the data, where advanced encryption standards being used. And maybe in part of your syllabus, maybe you may be covering cryptography and encryption. So this is for your entire, source of the data, authenticity of the data, when it is being received, whether it is the original data that you're receiving, or has there been any manipulation to the data, all this gets covered under the cryptography. Then comes the infrastructure, right from your office, the laptop that you use, or the personal computers or the mobile devices, the data centers that we have. In case of client server configuration, if it's a desktop, server and desktops. Each of this on the physical infrastructure, how are they being? Like, for example, a person who's working for an organization cannot access their network without going through a VPN. But there could be some places where you can go through the email. If you can access the email without a VPN, it's available, from the internet straight away. That means we are going to be exposed. So these are some infrastructure security. And one of the last thing is the incident response. Now, all this is being put in place to protect the various information that we have talked about earlier. But now, how do we respond to in case if there is going to be an incident, right? We find, like, for example, somebody calls and says, hey, you know what happened this morning when I came by cab? I left my laptop. So I'm calling the cab driver, he's not picking up the phone. One simple example. Many people have seen this. The second one is, now I think I left my, I carried a USB in which I had some business plans in that. I think I left it somewhere. I don't know. I searched my house. It's not available. The third one is we find, suddenly somebody in a particular application system, when you monitor it, you find that this person is generating a report. Every day, there are about 5 to 10 reports being generated. Today, you find there are 100 to 200 reports being generated by the same person. So is that an incident? We don't know. So we should have a proper incident response plan, identify the behavior, whether it could be accidental or it could be potentially malicious, and then prepare ourselves for the breach. And then how do we go and rectify and remediate that particular issue or a breach? And then what is more important is what is it we need to do going forward to ensure it doesn't happen again. So this is broadly the various types of information security. Now, we all know, we all use social media extensively, right? With multiple email accounts, multiple mobile accounts, and multiple mobile phones, multiple Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, you name it. There are multiple, huge. And in fact, I don't know whether any of us will be in a position to say how many of the applications are external, outside ourselves. How much of the contact do we have with the external world, we'll be struggling to quantify, saying that how many do we really have, right? So, but what is social engineering all about? When you're exposed to the social media, then you are exposed to a social engineering. When you're exposed to the world, so it is basically in fact, more than an act, I would say it's an art. It's an act of deceiving a person, okay, and then getting the person into your fold and say, okay, now I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to find you. How many of us have received phone calls saying that, look, we are calling from this bank and we want to give you this loan. Do you have the credit card? Can you give me the credit card number? Okay, you have been awarded a $5 million lottery amount. Please give me your email ID, your bank account number. It's a day in and day out affair. And then once you get the confidence of the person, then you take out all the information out of that person. And this is a very, very significant and very damaging, and which we see happening every now and then. Right? Every time you open the newspaper or any of the computer magazines, you'll find a lot of breaches being reported. And one thing about this is, whatever we do a very, very rigorous control that we put in place. But since the whole breach is centered around how do I win the confidence of the individual, right? So this is not going to stop, and we are here to live with this for a long time, right? Because people are the weakest link, right? When people are vulnerable, we have this problem. And these are some of the things you would have already known. What is phishing, right? So widespread, high impact threat. I mean, this is a sort of an official definition, you can say. To enable illicit access to personal and corporate assets. It could be through emails, it could be through anything, or through a link, and then you have a targeted attack through SMS, or what we call switching. Okay, now you want get this loan being granted for 1 lakh rupees or 1 crore. Please access this link. Once you go and access the link, you never know what you're giving it, right? And then targeted attack through voice communication. Okay, people keep on talking and then luring into your ransomware. We'll talk about. We have seen a lot of ransomware and malware happening all over, and this is getting more and more technical. Now, some of the things, basic things that we need to be focused on, whether as an individual or as an employee of any organization, never open any suspicious email attachment. Obviously, you don't know what is in store for you. Never divulge personal information. I think what is important here is we should not divulge even otherwise, not because somebody is asking you, even otherwise we should not. And I'm sure, we should also reflect after some time, and not after the session probably, how many of us are storing our passwords in the mobile phone? How many of us are storing our important numbers, whether it is Aadhaar card number or PAN number or whatever. You know what, it's very difficult for me to get whenever I want, so let me put it in the mobile. So don't store any of this information, and before we access any website URL, ensure that it is typed properly, not linked. These are, some may think that it is very simple. We have seen it all. We have heard about all this earlier, but the thing is, if that is the case, then we should have less number of incidents happening. But as the day progresses, as we move forward, there are going to be more and more such things happening. And very importantly is that if you're using, and you should use computer security tools. Some of them may use. We talk about the password managers. Please use the authentic ones, antivirus software or any of the tools that you're going to use. Please use authentic ones, not the typical character. Okay, now I'm not going to spend too much of time on this. It's a very basic thing. I thought it's very important because this is one thing I can tell you. This is one of the standard, what do you call, when we talk about information security, or whether the new people onboarding or for people who have been experienced, this is something which we cover as part of the information security package, right from the entry level till to senior director or vice president level. We share this. It may sound very simple, but though all this we know what we are not supposed to do, but many of us are still using the same password. So that's for your reference. And there are lots more. Okay, and especially when you're using a password manager, or you store all the, and use an authentic one. I know there is, with multiple, any website you get into, you need to have a password. Each one has got a different requirement, right? But that's the world we are in. So that is something which we cannot change anymore. Whether we like it or not, we're going to have multiple accounts, and we're going to have multiple client IDs or user IDs and passwords. And there could be additional checks and controls, but we have to live with it. Now, the thing is, how are we going to live with it with lesser stress? Are we going to be stressed, thinking that there are so many passwords that I need to manage, so I get worked up? Or I say, okay, that's a real world. That's a practical. That's the way I'm going to deal. I mean, that's the way I need to deal with it. So what is it I need to do? So managing password is the most fundamental and the most important thing wherever you do. Whether you're a student, whether you're working in a corporate, whether you are an entry-level employee, whether you are a director, doesn't matter. This is a very, very fundamental. Okay, email and cloud storage, very important on email. Just don't trust emails blindly. Okay, it's very important. And most of the emails come with very, very innocent emails, right? You think, oh, it has come from my bank. Actually not, it does not come from your bank. Please go and look at the name. It is different. There is one A added, or there is one X added. Okay, we all have got it, right? And if you're working in a company, if there is something which is confidential, which is to be used only for limited people, it's strongly recommended unless it is an officially secured cloud storage. means do not use your personal account and store material and information on the cloud storage. And obviously, when you have your official email, do not use it for personal use, and vice versa, right? And these are certain things which we all know. And more importantly, is that I think on a day, everybody would get at least maybe 5 to 15, emails with all these attachments, .exe, .scr. I mean, more and more. I mean, these are only 2, 3. I think there could be hundreds other executable files. You don't know what malware, what worm and virus is going to be on your. Now, what is this malware all about? So, despite all the technical differences that we have, right? Firewalls, filters, antivirus, we always have some viruses coming in, worms coming in. Now more and more, definitions. I mean, more and more, names are being given. There's a slight variation. Some can replicate itself, some cannot replicate. So it's a new name, and so this is something which you have seen that banks have been affected, where banks have been, intruded, their systems have been intruded by this malware or ransomware. Okay, pay us, $25,000, otherwise you cannot. So this is something which is another one, and especially for the computer students who want to make a career in the information security, this is my personal view. This is one area where you may want to do some, more. Not research, I'm saying more reading more books and understand more the technicality of it. What is going to be the future risk area that we are going to get into? How will it help? So, malware is one of the. So, with that, I think we complete the risk part. Now, I want to spend a few minutes on the information security management system. What is this information security management system? It's broadly a set of guidelines, processes, and controls that are put in place to ensure that whatever we spoke. What are the various types of information? What is the protocol that you have? What are the control measures you have? What are the breaches that have happened? It's basically put in place to help organizations for information security and to deal with data security breach. It happens, there is a security breach happens. How do I deal with it? So that time, an organization cannot go and look for it. Oh, what do I do now? No. If you're running an organization, if there is a risk associated with the information security breach, we must have this to minimize the risk for businesses. And more importantly, is the information security management system also covers or must cover, if there is a change in staff members. So what happens typically is that, I can tell you, I can talk for hours on that. We have seen multiple scenarios where we find, we go in the morning and then look for that person. He's not there. We wanted some report or something to be done. The answer will be that, oh, he's not in office today. So which means you don't get it because he's the only person who can give you that. So the risk is huge, humongous, right? And ISO 27001 is a globally accepted standard for this information security management system. Now, why do these organizations go for this kind of information system? Because a lot of clients ask for it. It's a credibility enhancement accreditation. By saying that, look, we are regularly following these information systems, these standards. It's a separate session or module that one can have on this 27,000. What are the various standards? What are the controls that we need to have? And it covers everything, right, from financial information, whatever we saw on the first slide. Everything gets covered in this. And what are the standards? How should the access be controlled? Who should be given access? How do we go and check whether people have access or not? Who are the extra people? I mean, who are the people who are not supposed to have access at board? How do you find out? How do you do the audit? Everything gets covered into the 27,001 standard. And then, obviously, the ISO does not give a certification or an accreditation. It is being done by agencies and people who are qualified. We have CISA auditors who are qualified, CISA qualified auditors who are well equipped with this knowledge and who can come and assess and build the controls and then do an audit of the organization systems and then give a certificate saying that yes, they are complying with ISO 27001. So it is not like our 10 standard or 12 standard pass. we get a certificate and we forever we can say that we have passed. No, this is something which has to be done periodically, every 2 years, or depending upon if there's going to be a major change in the organization. Because as we saw earlier, every day is going to be a new risk. And then more importantly, when you're dealing with information security, one must know about this GDPR. This GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, issued by the European Council in 2018. It started in 2018. We had an opportunity of working with some banks on this. Is phenomenal. Okay. Now, whatever is happening across the world, whatever work is being done by these various, for these various banks across the world. Like, for example, typically a bank in Germany or typically a bank in UK or in France, and if any client data is being accessed by people outside the European region, right? There are a lot of restrictions, right? And earlier, it used to be only if there is a breach happening in that particular processing, we used to inform only to the client. But now it has to be reported to the regulator. Then got to be a data protection officer has to be appointed, and then there are also a lot of banks have gone ahead and taken consent from their clients whether their data can be processed outside the region, right? So this is another very interesting area, and this is something which is going to be seen across the world, because every single country has started focusing on. India is talking about this. Our information should be stored only in India. The server should not be kept outside Indian our country boundaries. So there are a lot of debates going on. So this is another important thing in the information security GDPR. Now, a couple of examples I want to share with you. One, I think it may look very simple, but this is something which, out of many cases which probably we dealt with, there was one incident where a person, accidentally sent a lot of client information to an external email. Okay, the reason was that the person wanted to send some very routine information about the person's work hours and the timing, coming in, coming out, going out, whatever. But apparently, along with it, it's also went, and there was an intense. How did it get identified? It was identified through a email data leakage prevention tool, and using client data elements. Okay, the DLP tool uses various elements. It can be programmed, configured. It was identified. So what did we have to do? We had to do an obviously comprehensive investigation, and we had to reprimand the person. Then it opened up a whole new thing. Then we found out why did the person? What was the need for the person to send an email to outside? Why should the person have an access? Okay, even if the person should have an access to send it outside, okay, what are the documents or information that should be sent out? So there's a whole list of things. The good thing is that a lot of controls were put in place, but what is important is one cannot say that I did not know about this. Right? It's like when we are driving a car on the road, we should know what is the traffic rules. We cannot say I didn't know about it, I forgot. So when I'm working for an organization, I need to know what are the various InfoSec policies and controls. Now, after that, we did quite a bit of training, and then we started rewarding people who could identify the risk. Now, another example. Now, this is also another very simple day-to-day routine BAU event. We all use Excel. We all use macros, especially when you start working in large organizations. You'll find that Excel is a very, very important, powerful tool that's being used for data processing. And a macro was being used to extract report from some couple of external sources. And then apparently somebody went inside and then did something, and then nobody knew that the macro got changed and something got replaced there, and we extracted incorrect data from the external sources. Then this almost stopped our operations for about a couple of days. Because everything went haywire, everything went wrong because the number of records was getting increasingly very, very high. Incorrect data is being extracted. Then we stopped it, and then we had to do it manually. That's very important, right? Because we can't keep quiet until the macro is done, because work must go on. So that means intensive work, extra hours being put in, a lot of stress. And then as part of a remediation plan, we did a complete review of all the user-defined tools. And then we reviewed the access control metrics. And then the entire change management was put in place. So typically, a software development will have an SDLC and the change management work. For such, when I'm using my own Excel file, which I may share with others, I may not have a change management protocol. But you know what? That's needed. Now, as long as it touches any part of the business, the change management and control is very essential. And then, of course, we did the whole remediation, and then it was done. So, what as IT professional? I mean, when you get into work in the future, what is that you need to? First and foremost, obviously, you follow the procedures. It's very mandatory. Ensure your access is good. Look for malicious codes. Ensure no single point of failure. So, what is this no single point of failure? Many people ask. So, this is basically that don't create a dependability on yourself or on somebody else. The person doesn't come, or the person does not know, or he or she makes a mistake, everything comes to a stop, right? And then obviously you need to ensure all the entire information and everything is being protected. Now, I just wanted to quickly check. I know we are at 4:50. Do we go ahead, or can we stop here? It will take another probably 15 minutes.
Yes, sir. No problem, sir.
Okay.
No
Yes.
issue, sir.
Okay, digital technology and transformation. I wanted to focus on the bottom part first, and don't look at the digital transformation. Look at this is as recent as February, March, or maybe later than that. Bloomberg is a source, you can go and check. Okay, so the whole Wall Street, everybody must be knowing Wall Street. Wall Street is the biggest financial market in the world, right? Which decides the policies of governments across the world, right? JP Morgan Chase is rolling out virtual assistants, VAs, we all know, to maintain help desk, track errors, and to read inquiries to the various departments. A Bank of America corporate client made a 1.6 billion payment by mobile phone. Different story that we recently had another bank made an incorrect payment of almost $1 billion. Okay, that is another. That could be more on the information security breach. Then there is this Allianz Bernstein, which is a leading investment banker, and has a bot or a robo, whatever you call, and gather almost about 4 million data points based on the transactions done on a day, and deal with bond trades on its own. We don't need traders. We have seen trading floors in London and New York where people used to sit and trade for millions and millions of dollars. Now here we are talking about there could be a bot sitting on somebody's machine on a desktop, and it could gather all these data points, and then it can do it by itself. So what does it mean? That means that more and more machine, in simple language to put it, machines are taking over the jobs of the human, right? So which means it is one part of the digitization or the transformation, what we call as artificial intelligence or robotics. So basically, digital transformation, what does it mean? Is basically using the digital technologies, whether we use the robotics tools or we use cloud computing or IoT or anything, to make a process more efficient and effective. It could be anything. It could be answering phone calls. We are talking about AWS already. Amazon Web Services available. And the whole contact center can be set up in probably 1 week. You don't need a big team of 100, 200 people. So that's a kind of solution that are available in the market right now. So this is basically to enhance and redefine and transform the whole process and make it more efficient. It's not that whatever is already happening manually, you replace it with a digital form. No, that's not what it is. When you're transforming, see, that is only a transition. When you move from one to another, it's called a transition. When you transform, you make changes to the whole process and then make it more effective, then it becomes a transformation. And then it involves multiple technologies. Some of them, and this is a long list, and this is a hot topic right now. We have, what is cloud computing, Internet of Things, big data, we talk about artificial intelligence, whatnot. So what are the various agents, that we deal with in digital transformation? First, and of course, is the social media. We all know already people are talking about whether some of the social media giants, Facebook or anyone else, are influencing customer behaviors. We're talking about, there could be potential debates happening across the globe, whether some of these social media giants are influencing the election outcomes, right? So it is not anymore just to share our photographs and videos and what we like. It's much beyond customer interactions. What is that we are looking for, right? So social media is one thing which is transforming the whole the industry and industry future. Cloud computing, we have already know there's a lot of companies moving towards, okay, now we cannot host a platform on our own. We cannot have, say, for example, invoice processing system. We don't have that many invoices. We cannot have our own system. So we will have a cloud-based application. And then we'll get about 20 invoices per day or 100 invoices per month. So we will make use of that as I'll pay as I use. I use 100 invoices I pay through your platform. I pay you, say, $10 or 500 rupees per invoice. So which means all our information is already going in. So which means the requirement for people, for organizations to create or to acquire assets on their own and build an infrastructure and the maintenance team around it, it's vanishing. So this is another transformation that's happening. Remote access and mobility. Now, earlier it used to be we used to go to the bank. I don't think many of you would have gone to the bank also, but we used to go to the bank very regularly to deposit check and take cash. Then we started going to the ATM, and then we started going to the bank to deposit a check, and then went to the ATM to deposit a check. Now we don't go at all. If we want cash, sometimes yes. Otherwise, we pay through contactless card or we pay through online banking. Now you don't even need to have a laptop. We can do through a mobile device and an internet connection. And so remote access and mobility. So the mobility is becoming very powerful. So that is why you find now that once the whole mobility moves into the 5G infrastructure, we can't even imagine what's the kind of speed and the new things that we are going to witness. Then comes your big data. So what is this big data? I think there's a lot of debate going on this data analytics and the big data. Basically, the data, if you see information or data is huge, humongous. I'm not talking about the transaction data. I'm not talking about if you're working in the big hotel, in the hotel chain, number of customers, how many people live for how many, stayed for how many nights, how much of amount. No, that's not it. It's about the entire behavioral pattern, right? So the access, the person, how many times, which are the channels that the person watched during the night, and how many people, what age group people come, what age group people stay in the hotel rooms, what age group people go out, which restaurant they visit. So the kind of data that is available is phenomenal, right? So the whole analytical tools that are available right now, which help us to look through, sift through this big data and slice it into various pieces and see how can we make use of this and then create solutions. Then Internet of Things. I think this is one of the very hot topics. I'm sure most of you would have done some work on this. It's basically about, I just want to give you an example. First time when I saw this about, I think, probably 3 years back, one of my colleagues in my earlier company, where he showed a mobile and said, "Look, this is my house." He lives in a different country. And he said, "Look, this is the way I can switch on my geyser. I can switch on my electric stove. I can switch on this." I couldn't believe it. I said, "Does it really happen?" He said, "Yes." So he said, the whole thing is the number of these devices and sensors that we connect, in a group, in a network of things, for Internet of Things. I've seen it, and there are a lot of the inventions or enhancements or R&D work that is happening in this area. Finally, is the artificial intelligence, and this is one thing which many people. I've seen many people, maybe at some point of time, even I was a bit worried, I was nervous. So what happens when more and more machines are going to do human work, then what will happen to us? Well, but it's here to stay. It's basically an ability for a computer program or a machine, whatever we call, to do what the human beings have been doing. And then it can, based on its own intelligence, based on the information that he receives, based on the feedback that we gets, keeps improving the standards and experiment and make intelligent decisions. Some of them are chatbots. Any of the bank site you go and look for, okay, I want to see what is the fixed deposit rate. You'll find a chatbot coming in. saying that, okay, are you interested in fixed deposits? Do you want to know anything more? So it's basically an intelligence. Somebody is reading that you are looking at the fixed deposit rates, and then that's a chatbot. We had implemented a chatbot in one of my earlier roles. So it was a small scale, but it was very interesting. Okay, so some experiences I want to say. One, this happened a long time back. The reason why I'm talking about the left one is a very, very long time back when I was working for one of the banks. We did it. So we had large volumes of customer data to be processed. So typically what happens in an operations world is, you hire about 25, 30 people, and then you get Excel files and then take all the data and put it in an application system. Somebody will go and verify it. But then there was extensive pressure in getting this done. Suddenly somebody got a very brilliant idea and saying that, look, there is an automation tool, which is basically a testing tool that is being used for high volumes of transactions. When you want to test large volumes of transactions after development, you can use that tool. I said, okay. So we did. It was very interesting. I said, okay, let's try this and see. And it was very simple. I'm talking about almost about 14, 15 years back. So there were multiple levels of scrutiny. Nobody could believe. We ourselves could not believe that it could happen. We did 10 records, we did 50 records, we did 100 records. It just keeps happening. And then we put some controls. We got multiple levels of scrutiny that happened and approval we got. And then the result was there was a significant improvement in quality, more than anything else in quality. Because not that machines cannot make mistakes, but when human beings were doing, there was an element of bias, lack of concentration, which has to be identified. That has to be identified. So that is one experience that I got. The other one is which we actually created a bot. Not with a proper robotics tool that we used, where we had to create. Create means we have to say, for example, how do I create a client record in the system? Name, date of birth, address, phone number, like that. You know about National Stock Exchange and Bombay Stock Exchange, right? Various security stocks listed. So for an investment bank to deal with these kind of stocks, we need to create those records in the application systems. And when you're dealing with a global bank, dealing with 150, 160 global markets, I'm talking 150 countries, this job is humongous, right? So you have multiple systems, multiple sources, many people will send the request. A lot of manual processing, okay, and then scalability. Suddenly, if the volumes go up, we cannot scale up because we've got only X number of people. We cannot do more. So then we did a POC, proof of concept, with a particular automation tool, which was positive. But it didn't end there, right? Because we have to actually implement. It was a very, very interesting. A lot of failures in the process. Intensive cost benefit analysis. Why should we do this? What will be the cost and benefit? Then we have to do the entire end-to-end process analysis. As if you remember, the digital transformation, it's not about a machine is going to replace what human being is doing, right? But we have to improve. We have to transform. We have to change for the better. And then we did the development and testing. We have to test the quality, and then the risk assessment, right? This is where the information risk comes in to play, right? And a new program or a new bot is being introduced on the existing platforms. Okay, what risk does it bring, right? Obviously, we have very fundamental. I'll give you a very practical example. When you have access to the system, you will get a name and a password. Right? When a bot has to work on a platform, on a particular application, will it have a user ID and a password? Does it have an address, email address? Does it have a name? Answer is no. So which means it was questioning the entire fundamental identity and access management protocols. We had to go back and make modifications in our ISMS protocols. So because unless you give that access, bot cannot go and make changes there. And then after that, there's an ongoing maintenance. How do we maintain this bot? It can make mistakes, and the machine cannot do everything. So you'll always have an exception of 5%, 10%. How do we do that? Right? So successfully we implemented it, and this was, I would say, is a very, very interesting experience and a lot of failures, as I admit, but that helped us a lot in bringing in more digitization in the future. Okay, as I said, some of the key lessons learned from digital transformation was, the change management. Okay, what is that? Who are the stakeholders? The employees, technology, then vendors, then clients. Okay, you have to manage the change across various stakeholders. Why should the employees do that? Why would they agree to do anything like this? What is in it for me? If I do this, am I going to lose my job? Well, yes and no, because if a person is capable of doing only that work and nothing else, yes, then the job is at risk. But this also opens up opportunities for people to upgrade, upskill, and then do something else. And out of the box thinking, start questioning everything. Why can't I change this? Why should I do this just because I've been doing it for the last 5 years? And face the change with optimism. I think this is a personal lesson I've also learned. Don't focus on, okay, it's going to fail. Yeah, it's going to happen. Let's see. I think it should work, but at the same time, if it fails, what is it we need to do? And then, as part of the information security management system, we need to ensure that there is proper exception management and controls and an audit. And if the bot doesn't work, what is the backup strategy? Some of the key lessons I thought I'll share with you. So towards the end, I want to leave you with some few tips. Hopefully, it will be useful to you. One is on the information security. Trust me, you can ask anybody. The information and cybersecurity demand is ever growing, never stop. There may be there are a lot of certifications available. As I said about CISA, which is an audit certification, but for that one needs some work experience. One can go for a security professional qualification as well. That may help. But what is important is the strong analytical and problem-solving skills, right? I need to analyze, okay, what went wrong? Why did it go wrong? So why did this happen? Oh, okay. Now, that means this particular area has not been reviewed yet. It means we have not checked the access. We have not checked on the network server who all have got the access. Okay? And problem solving, how do we do? And more importantly is that one needs to have a risk and compliance mindset. Okay, so I need to be in a position to identify what can go wrong, and then I need to also comply with the rules and regulations. On the digital technology and transformation, I would say one obviously is a technical competency, right? Any of the tools and whatever you want to make a career out of, build your technical competency. But only technical competency can take you only to skill level. Build customer empathy. What does the customer want from us? Customer wants something, some digitization. What is the expectation? What the person would like to see? Think that empathy, that vision. Of course, out of the box thinking, as I said, start questioning everything. And the transformation cannot happen without collaboration. Okay, we have to work with people who are currently doing that work, and also we need to work with people who are going to face the challenge, who are going to face the change. And let's not forget one thing. We are all in it. When we are doing any transformation, even our roles are, undergoing changes. And the last thing, which is very, very important, we do a lot of learn, but very frequently we need to unlearn what we are learning. Right? Whatever we knew, whatever we were doing 3 years back, 5 years back, are not relevant now. To unlearn, then learn the new things and relearn. Right? So I know it may look like a very, sort of a gyan, but it's a fact. A lot of people are struggling because they don't want to unlearn. Right? You have to move on. Right? So what was important? What technology was there? Oh, this is what I thought. Information security all about. This is what I thought. Digitization. But I'm an expert in that area. It's fine. But the thing is now that does not have that kind of a demand. So what is it I can do more? What is it I can train myself and learn more? Okay. With that, I think I want to leave you with a big, big thank you, and be safe.
Thank you, sir. Really, it was an awesome session, and we came to know many things about phishing, smashing, and also I'm very keen to look after my mailboxes also, sir, hereafter. So thanks a lot for giving us cautious informations and messages. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you. And okay, so we close the session.
Yes, sir. There are no questions posted, sir.
Okay,
I think it is very clear for them.
I mean, it can be one of the two, right? Either they've understood everything or everything was a bouncer.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. It was really great session, sir.
Take care. Happy Saraswati Puja. And do share the feedback with me. And happy Saraswati Puja and Ayudha Puja for all of you. And take care.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, please, Avinash.
Okay, sir. I'll just give my word of thanks so that we can close this. So, okay, thank you, sir. It was really a great session, sir. Actually, there was many new things we have learned. Many students have not known what's actually cybersecurity, what are the malfunctions that could happen, what are the threats that could happen. But now they have got an idea about it, and it's really great. So that thank you so much. And it's really evening 5 p.m. and still there are many viewers viewing this. So thanks to all the participants and viewers still watching this. I have posted the feedback form in the chat box. So once you fill it, you can get your e-certificates. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Guys, that feedback form is posted in the comment box. So you can fill that and get your e-certificates. And thank you for waiting so long and watching this video.